Hi everyone, Julian Redmond. I lead the team at Ignition, and we're the developers of the Iris solution, which we may mention a couple of times today.
I'm Alex. As Jules mentioned, we work together on Iris. I'm also England World Cup supporter.
So I'm Neil Strange. You probably have seen me on lots of previous events. Sometimes Alex Higgs stands in for me on the presenter side of things. I'm very much a data vault and quite often now medallion method approach champion. I don't see much difference between the two, to be honest. When I look at the details, I'll probably be crucified for that, but I don't see much difference in there. And interested commentator on the marketplace, working with lots of clients now across the world on implementing solutions, very often large organizations. Anyway, right, so thanks for the introductions. Let's start with a poll. Results are coming out precisely 50-50. Alex, what do you feel about that? That's an interesting result there. So does that mean we have people who have solved the problem in with new platforms, or do we have organizations that are satisfied with what they have and don't see a need to modernize just yet? What do you think?
I think it'll be interesting to find out more, because we've definitely been in that situation. And I think depending on whether it's your first time or your third or fourth go at it, I think that will probably change the answer a little bit. I think we would probably do now, or how we would do it now, would be very different from probably how I would have approached it, the first time a little while back. So yeah, I think if anything, it's good to see that people are getting it right.
I mean, everyone's heard the pitch many times on this. In a sense, what's working well in production, what's stalled or been quietly shelved. We have, I think, from my observation, when I've worked with clients, we tend to see an event in a business which suddenly stretches the demand on the BI system. So it works very well, and often it's attached to the change in management. So we get a new manager arrive with some new ideas, a new director, and then suddenly new questions are being asked of the platform. And then you find that spreadsheets start to pop up, taking data out of the system, and data cleaning is done in spreadsheets. And then before you know it, a whole industry of spreadsheets are built around the existing platform. Platform was great at resolving the issues that previous management had. And then as the managers get into the depth, they keep asking rapidly new questions because they're trying to evolve a new strategy in the business. And that's when things start to fall apart. And the other area is with AI in general, where AI use cases start to come in. And again, the issues are data quality very often, and feeding AI through. When you look at AI initiatives, you say, and when they go wrong and look under the hood, what do you actually find?
It's really interesting, actually. Someone put in the chat that what do we actually mean by AI? Because it's already a spectrum of things, isn't it? So we have a little RAG model that we use to help us respond to RFPs and write proposals. It's got some of our history, some of our processes, those sorts of things, and so it can quite easily suggest paragraphs of content to fill out certain parts of a proposal or a tender, and I think that's really easy to do because you're putting a suggested a draft in front of someone to review and tidy up, and so it's helping someone get started, and I think that's a really easy thing and quite easy to get success with. I think where it becomes much more difficult is when you have to actually provide through maybe a BI layer an actual fact that the business is going to make a decision on. And in that case, it's not really about how powerful the LLM model is. It's more about what is the structure of the data that's being reasoned over. I guess the classic one is, do we have a complete view of our active customers? Is the LLM just trying to source an active customer number from a single system or from an outdated rule that defines active customer. I think that the structured data realm is in what we've seen anyway, and obviously everyone has different experiences, but there's a real challenge there in actually delivering facts and being sure that your AI implementation is actually doing that. So at least down in this part of the world, we're maybe a little bit further behind than some of the Northern Hemisphere cousins, but that's where we've seen customers struggling. They're very easy to adopt, a bit of Copilot for helping write an email or what have you. But when it actually gets to, are we going to put something in front of customers? Are we going to put reports in front of the board or senior management? That becomes a much bigger challenge. And I think that's where at least for this community of data vault or data management professionals, that's where our traditional skill set that we've all been working on for 30, 40, 50 years now comes in. Is we're used to trying to deliver facts with the evidence as to why it's correct. And I think that's it puts us in the right spot, but it is definitely a spectrum.
I like the question about define what you mean by AI in here as well. I think it can be many things to many people. So I mean, you can use it to do your data cleaning on load, so you can help it to address some of the data quality issues. Very much a data engineering model, and we're increasingly seeing people use AI at the far end to try and make sense out of the data that they have. But if you're building production pipelines, you need things that are repeatable, and you get variability with AI queries, which is not helpful.
That's actually quite interesting and quite nice to frame all that together. I think what's happened over the last few years, you've been given this new tool, and this new tool's come out that will make you do things quicker, right? You're going to be able to just knock out code quickly, analyze all of this stuff quickly. And absolutely, this new tool, this new big fancy shiny LLM is impressive. It can do a lot. But I think what it's also done in turn is really highlight or bring to the surface your problems quicker as well. What aspects that maybe you've neglected that have now caused an issue, that have brought up new issues, things that you should have looked at, but you kind of didn't, or you didn't spend the right time on. Now you've got this speedy tool that goes, look what I can do, look what I can do. And we all know these tools are there. They're very confident liars. They're very good at telling you what you want to hear. And therefore, it kind of really does go back to maybe now we need to maybe stop talking about some of the things that we can push aside and bring those things forward a little bit more and really look at giving. We spend all this time building these platforms that do things incredibly well. We've got this tool that sits on top of it that is able to analyze things very quickly. And you want the two to work together nicely. I think with all the experience that we've had and all these, when you start a new project, you kind of go into meetings, you do these discovery sessions, and you sit down with experts, with SMEs. And what you actually realize you're doing there is you're taking context, you're taking business knowledge, you're taking meaning out of the business. And we're trying to apply that inside the platform. What these LLMs, I think, are missing currently is that awareness of context, that ability to kind of stitch the power and the speed with what we've built and the storage layer that we've kind of built in the inherent kind of meaning that we've modeled and shaped that layer into. It's just missing that kind of middle ground to really kind of show everyone what it can do. And I think that's why these projects are kind of, let's go throw an AI tool on top and it'll do everything. Yes, but it's going wrong because we're just missing that little bit in the middle, that bit that kind of connects the speed to the understanding, to the data, to the platform, the storage that we built.
Yeah, so I kind of see this as two ways. Maybe you could comment on this. So you've got a data quality issue coming in the first place. So poor data quality, although LLMs can start to fill in missing data and make interpretations on that, it's not perfect. But the other aspect of that is also that the data itself is technically focused. So it's the column names and table names of the source systems in there. So it could infer meaning from that, or it's better to tell it what it means in advance through some sort of semantic modeling approach. What do you feel about that? Do you see that in the clients you have at the moment?
Yeah, and I think that's the bit that we're kind of trying to engage our clients to understand a bit more of. You can build a platform, and in a way it's tangible. You can go pick an LLM up off the shelf, and in a way it's tangible. Mm-hmm. Therefore, connecting the two, people naturally assume, bang, put them together, off you go. But there is this bit in the middle, this bit that gives, definitions and ontologies and context awareness that you've built into your storage layer, your platform, and giving that real meaning and kind of that temporal way of looking at data and positioning that in such a way that it's understandable by the tool. So it's not the data isn't there and all of that, but it needs to be lifted up a layer into something that the tool can understand. And that's the bit that we're trying to engage with our clients on. Without that bit, all this work that you've done, it's hard to kind of get the tool to understand. It doesn't know what meaning is. It doesn't know what context is. It doesn't know that a customer could mean this specific thing, not, it could be a person, not a business. That kind of understanding, those definitions that only you inside your business will know and understand and define. And, we want to give it that. And therefore, that's the kind of bit that we're trying to really kind of engage people with and trying to get them to understand.
I think you're right. And if you listen to people, you get the classic one coming out that marketing, sales, and finance have different definitions of customer. So marketing's anyone we've spoken to who sent an email to us, that's a customer, and sales are people we're trying to chase down at the moment, and finance is anyone we've invoiced. I mean, that's standard, but I think actually it gets worse as the organization grows and becomes more complex. And it's particularly bad if you're an assembly of companies. So if you've been out on an acquisition spree, you're bringing in all these companies that are using these terms, but they've all grown up in their own cultures as to the definition of those terms. So it's even simple things like, costing data coming in. 4 different companies, 4 different costing systems. They all talk about cost of goods sold, but it's all calculated on a different basis. How on earth do you add those up unless the AI understands the different basis of the calculation?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it won't understand that without you helping it along a little bit. And, in order to help them along, of course, then we're into that bigger picture of, especially like you say, if you've gone into this buying spree, definitions are just, everyone's got their own one. Now we're into the realm of governance and really getting that kind of meaning right.
Pick your own P&L statement really from that. So let's say I'm an AI. What do you see as the sort of critical factors for a data model needed to support an AI query running?
Look, we're firm believers in the Vault methodology, and kind of much like everyone here on the call, I think we all totally understand how it works, and the benefits of it. And I think now that we're getting into that AI age where we're trying to really put meaning over the data, to be able to look at concepts like hubs, where you're really grouping together a strong business concept, a strong business entity, to be able to query and find relationships that are defined through the data and through business meaning, and then to have satellites that help you identify at what point in time something's going on. You've got Business Vault where you can version business rules and outcomes, and to be able to put trust in your data and make your data auditable, I guess, through the LLM, to be able to ask the LLM a question, to be able to get, meaningful insights, and then to be able to trust it because that you can always go through your data and find, the exact point, the exact record, why that happened and when, and through what version of what business rule. To be able to do that really does put trust into the data, because like you said, it's a very confident liar. So you want to know that you're trusting the underground.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, I mean, we're getting a number of comments on the channel on this, so maybe I can sort of paraphrase what's coming through. But there's a lot of evidence out there about, well, the AI can infer the meaning of things now, the semantic meaning of what's there. So you don't need to do all this data engineering and pipeline building. We can work off of the raw data itself. You don't need you can get by with a very shallow data pipeline. So you can stop maybe even at the data lake layer, let the inference happen and move forward from there. Management, of course, want fast results. They want to spend as least as they can building out a platform. Where's that sweet spot in there? I think I know the answer to that, but interesting to your thoughts on that. Are we there yet, and will we ever get there?
There is a good benchmark that was published a little while ago called the Bird benchmark. I assume that Bird is the actual gentleman that or lady that wrote the paper. But essentially, what it was doing was looking at, can the SQL generated by LLMs work essentially as an data engineer to to find data, make the right inferences, be able to join the right things. And what it showed is that, at a join depth of more than 3 steps, everything sort of started to fall apart. So 4 steps, you were down at about 50% accuracy, which is clearly, we would never accept 50% accuracy out of any of our data marts serving a BI tool. And so it's interesting, actually. I think we're kind of coming to the conclusion that you can use AI in a couple of spots. You can use AI maybe, in your early phases to help you build, and you can use AI to help you consume. But the bit in the middle, where the governance lives, where the resolution of entities, where the creation of your ontology and aligning that ontology to your data model, those sorts of things are actually critical, and they can't be left just an AI to make up. It needs human in the loop at the very minimum to make that connection. And so, it's really a question, I guess, if you're talking data vault methodology, it's the information mart layer that we want to be pointing the AI to, if we've done the work around semantics and definitions and business rules and all of those sorts of things in what would be the raw vault and business vault layer. And Alex and I are 100% aligned with your view of medallion, Neil. Like vault fits in very neatly. I know there's lots of people who don't like the medallion thing because it is kind of a vendor architecture, but it's a 3-layer architecture. There's a clear spot for the data vault structures to live. Silver is where integration and other things, data quality and governance, should be taken care of. So we lean into that because we're not going to convince people to use a different terminology. And so I think what it was really showing, this benchmark, was that if you do that step right, then your gold layer or your information mart layer, whatever you want to call it, can then actually deliver to some, there's Power BI has a semantic modeling capability, and I know it's coming out in all of the tools, and there's ontology tools now that are being designed or delivered to kind of feed that stuff. They're still asking for the information. And so during the modeling process, you are capturing your terms and definitions and building that ontology and being able to feed it into those tools, because they're just tools. And then they can feed an AI that helps with that kind of conversational querying. That I think that's what most business users really think of AI is, I want to talk to the machine and I want it to give me the right answer.
That's true. I mean, I'm happy that there are more ontological tools coming out, because it was a very abandoned area for tool support for a long time. But the way I kind of think about it is, you can develop an ontology, but how do you map that into a database for storage? So you have to do a logical design of that. Now, if you're modeling a business, what is the ontology of a business? It's nothing more than concepts and relationships.
Yeah.
And they translate very nicely into hubs and links in the data vault method. It's almost a no-brainer from an ontology across into the data vault. There's a couple of design decisions around non-historized links and stuff that need to be made. And sometimes there's a debate about, is it a hub, is it a link, or is it both, or have we been overlaid? But essentially, if you don't have a data vault, then what are you going to do? Because you're modeling a graph structure in there with any ontology. Alex, what do you think about that? That's the way I approach it anyway. If your modeling's right, how do you model in Data Vault to make sure you are supporting AI properly?
With Data Vault modeling, it's maybe with a lot of different types of modeling, but you need to engage the business, right? You really do need to sit down with those who understand the data, who use it day to day, and get them involved in it. And therefore, to be able to kind of use what the business mean in terms of kind of how they define things, how they group, context, the relationships that come out of conversations that happen within the business at all different levels, to be able to model that as a business view over the data is incredibly powerful. And I think that leads very nicely into then applying those concepts into AI. So you're kind of really, maybe not knowingly at the start, but you're building those layers without knowing it to then be able to throw in something like an AI tool on top to really kind of help you analyze the data and find insight and do all of that you kind of want to do. So yeah, I think, it makes a lot of sense. You're doing it already. Let's keep going.
So let's take the counter view. What would be a badly implemented data vault that would not help you in this sphere? Julian, have you seen any of those anywhere? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think anything that's source aligned just delivers you the same problem, right? So if you are creating hubs aligned to your source systems, you're not grouping anything together, and then you are creating more confusion for the AI. I think that's probably the most obvious to me.
I'd also say pick your grain and stick to it. So just because your source system has been built to support 40 different types of customer model, don't replicate that data model in there. You're supposed to simplify it. And what's the appropriate grain for analytics in your organization? What's the event level that you're working with? Use them to design your links and then build around those.
Anything that's virtualizing business rules rather than actually providing physical business vault tables is going to be a problem as well, because you're trying to deliver a definitive answer that's been stored, and that you can then run a chain or a variation of the rule and and write those results and audit it and compare it and those sorts of things. So I think anything where you're virtualizing that layer might be a challenge for an AI as well, because it won't necessarily know to run the rule. So
yeah, that's true.
No, I was going to just about to kind of add to that, and I totally agree with you. Simplicity is really the best way to look at it. If you go in with that mindset and you make your structures simple, you make relationships, all that kind of, you make it as simple as possible, and you don't complicate things by trying to, and the one I'm sure we've all seen is make a business vault table do much more than it really should do. You're just going to start getting yourself into trouble. Keep everything simple. It's okay to have a few more tables. It's okay to kind of not copy things left, right, and center. Vault is about joins. You're going to have to do it. It's okay. Make life easy.
So what do you think a data vault does not solve? I always say methods are designed to solve particular problems, and sometimes problem spaces don't reflect the method. So what do you think in there?
I think it's not just a vault, but any modeling that you do and any platform that you build won't solve a problem if you're not specific about the problem you're trying to solve. And I think I see that a lot, where people just want to build something and it will just get it all in there and we'll figure it out and it'll all make sense. But actually, if you don't know what your problem is, really doesn't matter what you do, you're not going to be able to solve it. And I think that for me is the big key insight here. It's define what it is you want, show value, do it bit by bit, make sure you're really, if you can ask a good question, then you should be able to solve it. And that's probably where I kind of, I'm still not what you're looking for, but that's what I think.
Okay, so what would the full stack look like when obviously we've got guidance on cleaning, rules, architecture, the way we handle the interpretation of data and model it. What would a full stack look like for the solution?
And I think for us, it's that pyramid kind of way of looking at it, starting from the top down. You have your frontier LLM model of choice. They're all pretty good nowadays. Underneath that, you've got your knowledge base. You want to be able to really augment what you've built with solid knowledge that is well governed and well defined. And then underneath that, that's where you have your storage layer, your raw vault, your business vault, your ability to audit, find history, all that logic is within there. And then of course, to really help you along with that, your automation tool. For those who are aware, obviously we have our own automation tool, but recently we also came up with a assistant tool. And what we want to do now is also take some of that AI knowledge and use it to help users begin to model their data. So kind of a real start with a little bit of LLM help to end up giving the LLM some real strong guidance to help you find it.
I mean, AI is arriving. Warehouses are around for 15 years or more when you build them, usually. Maybe I'm partway through a Medallion implementation or a Data Vault implementation or even a Kimball implementation. How do I bolt AI in, start to introduce this into the system that I have?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, I think AI connects to the gold layer. Like it is essentially wanting sort of dimensional model with a semantic model supporting that. We're definitely not, and I saw a question in the feed just now about are we talking about connecting the AI to the data vault, and we're definitely not. That the AI wants to consume some sort of big, wide, flat or dimensional model with all of the right semantic information provided with that. So what I think it really comes down to is resolving those entities. You pointed out before that an ontology and a data vault model look almost the same. Every hub has an entity in the ontology and every link has a relationship. I think that's where you want to start. And I think that the thing that, at least in this part of the world, that a lot of companies miss is that you can do data vault incrementally. You can literally do it one table at a time, and it's a graph. So it either has somewhere for the data to live, or you can extend the graph to create that place for that data to live. And so you don't have to rip and replace anything. You can just start building up and defining the right entities and delivering the data into that. And it might be, we're just going to resolve customer so we can answer that active customer question, or we're just going to resolve this other issue because it's got to do with compliance or PII or something like that. So I think it's really trying to there's been a lot of movement towards lake houses and cloud data platforms and those sorts of things over the last 5 years, I guess. Fits into that. Medallion fits into that. Data Vault fits into Medallion. Agile fits into Data Vault. It's just start. And as Alex said, what we're delivering with the assistant in Iris is a way to incrementally do that one table at a time, guide someone through that modeling process to define things. It not only helps you create the model, it helps you create the definitions as you're doing it. But it's all human in the loop. We're trying to extract the knowledge out of the human, bit of AI assistance rather than the AI do the work. So I think that's how you can kind of incrementally make that step towards towards this sort of more robust thing that's going to last 15 years.
Yeah, I think I found that with us as well. You essentially grow the warehouse out of any existing model that's there. pick something that looks like a hub and join to it, even if it's not a hub. Yes, you gradually evolve and move away. So you're right, no rip and replace, keep running what you've got now,
Yeah,
and so
absolutely.
forth. And definitely it's the gold layer. I mean, there's only 2 layers where users might want to access it. It might be the raw tables in the bronze layer. And if you're storing them as delta tables, you have to put a current view over that anyway, which we put into the gold layer. So we try to make the gold layer as the access point. The gold layer contains sandboxes as well as a semantic model from which you can build your own self-service. So something like that.
I agree with that. And I was actually going to bring that up myself. I think it leans, in my opinion, quite nicely into the Daniel way of working to be able to, separate out the fact that if you do want to do that thing where you're ingesting loads and loads of tables, because that's really important, you can let somebody do that into the bronze layer, and then you can start thinking about value through the silver layer, through integration, and doing it bit by bit to really deliver, quick value to the customer, but not holding back the fact that you are building, this staging layer, if you like, of data and so forth. And like you say, with delta tables and so forth, and how a lot of these modern platforms work, it lends to that. Absolutely.
And in the chat, I've noticed Gunter just put something up about getting a transcription of your interviews, get that to suggest your entities. Very much that's what we do as well. It helps, gives you the starting anchor points for the model. The real debates is around the grain of the links. The entities tend to suggest themselves. The hubs tend to suggest themselves quite readily. So it's people look at data vault modeling with fear, and actually it's pretty much common sense once you've got the hand and the notation, and the notation's only got about 3 things in it. So it's not too bad. Jump in and try is what I say. Okay, so I mean, I think you kind of answered this anyway, Alex, but we get moving. How quickly can we get something out? First sprint on a project. Clients hungry to see things happening. What can they see on the first sprint if we're careful here?
Oh, I think you can get a lot done. It really is. I would think about a good question that we can answer, work out what you need from that, and if you've got the right architecture, the right automation tools, you can get data ready very quickly. And then once you have that, and again, going back to our assistant, it'll help you kind of model that through, and you'll have artifacts that you can build quick views over. And again, what I like about that, and this is, I constantly push for this, is that, just build quick views over your raw vault, business vault artifacts. Ugly, dirty, doesn't matter, but you can get something to the user to look at, and you can get them to look at it really quickly. And then if you're happy with it, it's like a little bit of a POC. Let's build that out properly. It's quick, it's easy, you can amend it. And I'm a big fan of doing it that way. And therefore, by doing it that way, within a couple of sprints, you have something to look at. You have something to eyeball. You have something that you can put in front of a user, and they can start asking interesting questions. And that could reshape your whole project very quickly. And actually, suddenly you're really working with the business, and that's really strong.
Okay, so all sounds fantastic. Where's the surprise when people are trying to estimate the work that needs to be done? Where do they end up maybe spending more time than they thought on this? AI will speed things up a lot, but there are some, I think, customized elements which you need to be aware of.
Yeah, I mean, business rules are the thing that jumps to my mind, right? Like Business Vault, I think, is one of the secret sources of Data Vault, is being able to separate your rules and version control them, and then tell the LLM what is the most current version of that rule, but these were the previous versions of that rule as well, and have the definition attached to it. But they're complex. I mean, obviously there's a lot of very simple business rules, and you're going to get through those quickly, but I don't think we've ever found a site that didn't have a big pile of complex business rules that we had to solve through. And so, we've mentioned the assistant a bunch of times. It's the mechanics of doing the vault structures. It's not going to solve the business rules. Someone who knows the data, knows the business, knows how the business looks at that information and understands the interpretation that is required. There's no getting around that, and there's no way that an LLM is going to guess that either.
It might help you with some of the construction and clarification and maybe test cases and stuff. But you're right. You get the business rules are as complex as the business itself. So I find we can reliably bring raw data in and get it all mapped and integrated pretty much within a tight estimate. And then the question starts: how do you interpret this in your organization? And then things like reconciliation, which sound like they should be very easy, suddenly becomes a challenge because of all the things we've said there. And we're only as messy as the current accounting system is with its data, or current customer systems are with their data, and all the ambiguities built into those as well.
And that's at that point you realize that somebody somewhere has been crunching into their own spreadsheet for years. This way of doing it, no one's told you, and you've suddenly turned up gone, oh, by the way.
Or you have two that have done it differently, and they've never quite aligned on the numbers, but they've tolerated it. Okay. So
it is the analysis and the requirements gathering there, isn't it? It's like you could have, Claude Code help you write the code, but it's really actually knowing what needs to be resolved and and how to resolve it and have those conversations with the business. I think AI is miles away from that. So.
I think it's a people problem rather than an AI problem very often, and people change a lot slower than AI do. So I've heard about sort of RAG as the mechanism for connecting AI to data. Is that the right frame we should be using here? Should we be looking at MCP? What sort of things are we looking at?
I think there's lots of new acronyms, isn't there? RAG and MCP and LLMs and not. I mean, RAG. I think RAG's pretty good for retrieval from documents. I mean, that, and I think that's an easy place to start, as we said right at the start of this conversation. But I think there is much more for the types of data that we're talking about that businesses operate on, the transactional information. You need to have that context engineering. It is really about entity resolution and definitions, mapping the relationships and that structure, and then getting rules and policies right. And that's bread and butter data management for the last 30 years. The skill that we've developed, as I said early on, I think is the skill set that's required still to be able to support essentially what is a different way of consuming data. It's there is not a magic bullet to the integration and governance of data yet. So I think we're creating like essentially more demand and then a structural dependency on this silver layer or this integration layer that I know our community talks about it. I get a lot of posts in my LinkedIn feed and whatever that show that plenty of people are aware of this. But I think in the business community, there's a lot of people who think that AI is some sort of magic bullet that's going to make the data team, the annoying data team that I don't want to talk to because they slow everything down. They think it's going to go away, and actually it's made the dependency worse. So
it's always with IT, it makes the mess faster if you don't approach it with the right architectural frame.
It's the same story. It's get the foundation right, isn't it? It's
kind of a bit. I guess like these on, we're actually running out of time soon, but we'll come on to maybe a final point, I think, which is something I think is going to be shaping the next few years, and that is around regulation. So the EU stepped in and was one of the first to regulate in the industry about AI and its use of data. I think US has been Wild West up until 1 week ago, when they suddenly realized that AI could be a threat to platforms. And now they're bringing in hurried regulation to control that. Surely we're going to start to see a lot more issues around here, which takes us back into data governance, data labeling, and all that sort of thing, and explainability and ethics as well in this space. How do you see AI that kind of AI regulation impacting on what we're doing in the data vault? Because again, data vault's kind of a neutral modeling technique, but how could the AI support or be supported by that?
Yeah, that's a natural question, Alice. And I think the questions that are being asked there about, your data that you're giving these big companies to build these even bigger algorithms on, it's my data, you're learning from it. How do I keep myself up? Totally agree with that. But the question really they're asking there is, in a way, like you say, it's explainability. So therefore, if we kind of take that down a level into our kind of project sphere, what we're saying is that the foundation, that the storage layer that we're building, it's there to kind of be a foundation. It makes not just the AI a bit more reliable, but what it really does is it makes the AI explainable. You can now kind of question where you got that from, and hopefully it should be able to traverse back down through your vault layers, your business rules, your effective dates, all of that kind of stuff, and be able to produce an explainable reason as to why it suggested what it did. And that really is, I think, a kind of flow-on effect of all that trust that you want these LLMs to have.
That's been a real eye-opener for many of our clients as well, is that traceability from source to target. So that often their existing platforms, they aggregate data, throw away the raw data as part of that. So they on cleaning, they lose it, or there's spreadsheets in the loop. With you go to the disk system and there's a spreadsheet for every week going through, and then data's loaded from spreadsheet across, and someone's been playing with a formula because 1 week something didn't work right, so they edited a formula for it or hard coded something in and they never spotted it.
Still happens.
And it still happens. You can't get explainability through that. And that again, that even on a simpler level, a new manager coming in might say, what's that number? Why is that the case? And it takes days, and they come back and say, well, either we can't do it, or they come back a bit sheep-faced and say, well, actually, the spreadsheet was wrong, and this is the real number that you need to be looking at here. So it applies at many levels. Okay, so we're actually coming to an end, I think, of the time we've allotted. Found it really interesting. There's been a load of chat going on in the past there. I'd like to have brought more of it into the conversation, but I think we've picked out some of the themes from there in what we've covered. I'm really looking forward to seeing how all this space evolves. It'll move fast. I think AI itself moves faster than we can cope with it at the moment. Or I'm just getting old and can't cope with the pace of change. But it's been a factor of my whole career, right the way back. Every few years or so, we reinvent things and put more levels of abstraction in, and I think AI is very much the same thing. Whatever you do, we're going to still need modelers, we're going to still need architects, and we're still going to need to dive into the code and fix the business rules and stuff. So I think there's a role for us as engineers in the long term, but we'll be a lot more productive with the AI on board.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you everyone for attending. Hope you found that useful. Thanks Julian and Alex for your attendance today. Been very interesting, and hope to see more of you in the future. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Bye.